Revealed, fiancé dinner turns incredible when unexpectedly pregnant ex-wife becomes the waitress. Jake couldn't shake the buzz of excitement as he and Emily walked into the familiar eatery, their favorite spot where laughter and dreams intertwined over glistening plates. Tonight was meant to celebrate, a toast to the bright future he thought was finally within reach. But just as they settled into their booth, his heart plummeted there, smiling uneasily with a notepad in hand, was Sarah, his ex-wife. Time, it seemed, had twisted her torment, leaving behind only the ghost of a marriage drenched in misunderstandings. Her pregnant belly made the sensation worse, a tangle of shock weaving through the anticipation they had moments ago. Emily's eyes darted between Jake and Sarah, a nervous flicker of confusion brewing. While she tried to keep her composure, a tension thick enough to slice permeated the air, sending Jake's mind spiraling. He had spent years anchoring himself to the ground after the wreckage of his first marriage, only to have that very ground tremble beneath him. He fought to provide Emily the stability he believed she deserved, but right now, the pillars of his calm began to quake. Jake forced a pleasant smile, but inside, a storm raged. He couldn't deny the flicker of old feelings. How could he? Shared dreams swirled through his mind, the laughter they once had, the plans for a family that died in the ashes of their love. But now it was a new but fractured picture. Sarah was about to birth a child, interlacing their complicated legacy with something entirely new. Each delicate exchange between orders grew heavier, each polite inquiry about life met with a choke on truth. He felt squeezed between regret and obligation, struggling to sort through the emotions that erupted like a fault line. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each bite, Jake's thoughts tumbled, internalizing the conflict rising like a tidal wave. Sarah seemed more resilient than he remembered, her quiet strength a stark contrast to the chaos he associated with their marriage. Caught in this physical space, memories commenced a relentless march. Every happy day, every fight, every whispered promise, now juxtaposed against Emily's hopeful gaze. The weight of Sarah's revelation about being a single mother morphed the evening into something unrecognizable. Jake felt responsibility creeping in, mingling with the pain of a past he thought he had buried. He could either extend that olive branch, maybe trying to mend the gaping wounds, or protect the fragile bond he nurtured with Emily. As Jake wrestled with the moral quandary gripping him, a desperate need to reach out against the innate desire to shield himself and Emily, the air around him thickened and crackled with unspoken emotions. Sarah's next words hovered just out of reach, igniting an unseen tension that drew the conclusion closer. He opened his mouth, feeling the swell of words that could shift everything, but the moment hung still, suspended in the fractured bond of all they were, and all they might never be. What choice lay ahead for him? The answer felt like a knife, poised to carve out their fates. As the minutes stretched on, Jake's mind was a battlefield. Emily's warm gaze was filled with encouragement, yet each fleeting smile felt like a brick loaded onto a fragile tower. His heart sank deeper, battling between unearthed nostalgia and newfound love. He mustered a response for Emily but found his attention diverted back to Sarah. Every casual interaction felt layered with unspoken words, emotions clawing at his mind. He pushed his fork into the untouched salad, each stab a futile attempt to refocus. "Sarah, how have you been?" The question spilled out, seemingly innocuous, but he felt the gravity it carried. Her expression shifted, the confident waitress facade cracked just momentarily. "It's been challenging," she replied, her voice tight, with an air of resilience forged from strife. Jake's heart raced. "You're going to be a mother. That's a big change." As soon as he said it, he regretted the implications hidden in his comment. This wasn't a conversation he should be having, yet it unfurled naturally as his mind spiraled. Emily's hand clasped his tightly beneath the table, grounding him just enough to deflect the weight of their interactions. An empathetic smile from her offered solace, even if he felt adrift in his own turbulence. Jake clenched his jaw, bracing himself against the emotional current swirling around them. "Yeah," Sarah responded, her eyes flickering with something akin to hope. "I'm trying to manage. I've got support now." She glanced fleetingly at Jake, and time folded inward, swirling around the shared history flickering like jagged lightning. Old wounds bled anew under the bright lights of the restaurant, even as new unifications promised brightness. But Jake knew that there was no straightforward path down this road. He had been dedicated to his relationship with Emily, nurturing her dreams was a priority he wouldn't abandon, yet a visceral tug anchored him back to Sarah. He suddenly missed the curious way they had navigated their earlier years, how effortlessly they dreamed of their future. How had it all unraveled so completely? Finally, a moment of clarity pierced through the noise. Jake realized he was at a crossroads of personal development, a chance for introspection that could reshape his professional choices if he let it. The delicate balance of his ambition prior had often been shadowed by the pain of his past choices. But here, instead of retreating emotionally, could he leverage this moment to forge ahead? "I'm here if you need anything," he heard himself say, surprising both Sarah and himself. It was a statement of openness instead of a door to the past slamming shut. Was he strong enough to shoulder that burden without jeopardizing his present? Emily's grip on his hand tightened, an anchoring reminder of what was currently at stake. He met her gaze, searching for reassurance. Rather than boats stuffed with regret, he now mustered flickers of possibility, the power of choice lighting a path forward. Jake understood at that moment that acknowledging Sarah didn't mean erasing Emily. They could coexist, pent-up feelings challenging his growth in ways he hadn't anticipated. But before he could delve deeper into these realizations, Sarah shifted. "You know, I've been thinking maybe we could talk, just the two of us, about what's next." The word settled heavy in the air, laden with implications that rippled through Jake's core. Could this be the moment that would alter the trajectory of everyone's lives? As his pulse quickened, Jake was suddenly faced with a question spiraling in his mind. What would be the cost of confronting his past while building his present? The tension rose, a charged atmosphere pregnant with unresolved stories. In that charged moment, Jake recognized a deeper conflict. The time had come to confront the echoes of his past, but at what price? Jake's thoughts swirled in a tumult of possibilities as he processed Sarah's words. A conversation, just the two of them. It felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of uncertainty. He glanced at Emily, her eyes briefly flickering with concern before securing their connection with a reassuring squeeze. The invitation hung between them like a sharp blade, cutting through the moment and exposing the tender complexities of their reality. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" he heard himself say, the words heavy with hesitation. He recognized his instinct to protect his current relationship, yet the magnetic pull of the past refused to dissipate. Sarah's struggle resonated with him, calling forth long-buried sentiments that had lingered amidst the chaos of their shared history. "I think it's important," she said softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "There's so much we haven't talked about. I don't want it to be like it was this silence eating away at us." Her honesty wrapped itself around his heart, squeezing tightly. In that moment, Jake found himself at a crossroads not only of emotions but of his very identity. Who was he now, standing on the brink of potential reconciliation? Could he allow himself to be pulled back into the depths of his past while maintaining the hopeful beginnings he shared with Emily? "Let's talk then, but I need to set some ground rules," he said, surprising both of them. His voice was steadier than he felt, but a new determination flickered within him. This was not merely about Sarah and the decisions they would discuss, it was about Jake reclaiming his agency in a chaotic web of emotions. With a rush of adrenaline, he began to shape the parameters in his mind. This conversation could serve as the catalyst for closure, but he must ensure it did not spiral into nostalgia or emotional backtracking. "I want to respect what you're building too, Sarah. This isn't just about us," he added, emphasizing the importance of boundaries. She nodded slowly, respect evident in her expression. "I understand, Jake. It's just complicated. I don't expect anything from you, not really. I need to figure out what this means for me. For my future." Those words resonated deeply, revealing the raw uncertainty they were both grappling with. In that unexpected moment, Jake felt a flicker of empathy towards Sarah's struggle. Change was no stranger to him. Life was an ever-evolving tapestry of decisions, and now, he was presented with the choice to learn from his past rather than fear it. As they discussed their upcoming meeting, Jake mentally calculated how to direct the conversation toward clarity, rather than ambushing it with unresolved feelings. There was a subtle thrill in contemplating the inevitable confrontation with his history, juxtaposed with the weight of his present obligations. Could he recast his narrative, using past experiences to inform his current path without sacrificing the love he held for Emily? His thoughts wandered to his dreams, aspirations in his career that were sometimes intertwined with his emotional landscape. He thought of the way he'd let fear of failure chase him away from pursuing promotions, out of a belief that he didn't deserve success. Even now, as he navigated his relationships, the shadows of self-doubt loomed. But he could redefine that power. When Jake returned to the table, he found Emily waiting, her expression revealing concern and curiosity. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, her tone gentle yet probing. It was a question that dared him to plunge into the depths of his self-doubt, to excavate the hidden fears swirling beneath his calm surface. With a deliberate inhale, he resolved to share his thoughts, allowing his vulnerabilities to emerge from the shadows. "We're going to talk. Sarah and I, just the two of us," he stated, uncertainty danced with determination in his voice. "What does that mean for us?" Emily asked, her voice a mere whisper that echoed within him. Jake met her gaze, conviction rising within him. "It means I want to confront the past effectively, not to revisit it, but to ensure it paves the way for our future." As those words settled in the air between them, a profound realization struck him. The journey would not only involve facing Sarah but would also serve as a touchstone for Jake's own growth, a critical step toward redefining himself professionally and personally. The stakes had never been higher, but he could harness this experience, learn to navigate between delicate loyalties, and emerge stronger. The path was fraught with tension, but it was a tension he now felt empowered to engage with. What opportunities awaited beyond this reckoning? As he pondered the potential metamorphosis this engagement could bring, Jake felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Tomorrow would be pivotal, but in the tempest of conflicting emotions, buried truths awaited revelation, and the question loomed larger than ever: would facing his past lead to a stronger future, or would it unravel everything he had fought to build? The morning sun pierced through the blinds, casting sharp lines of light across Jake's face, awakening him to a world that felt both familiar and dramatically altered. His dreams had swirled with images of the past, ghosts trailing behind him, whispering secrets of nostalgic safety mingled with haunting regret. As he rose from bed, the weight of the day pressed heavily against his chest. Today, he would meet Sarah. Despite his assurances to Emily, self-doubt wriggled at the edges of his thoughts. Would he manage to convey his intentions clearly? Would the boundaries he set hold firm amid the emotional current that threatened to engulf him? He did his best to shake off the anxious tension, knowing that this was not merely about confronting Sarah, it was about forging a stronger identity for himself, a next step in his journey of becoming. In the moments before the meeting, Jake took to pacing in his small apartment, rehearsing conversations in his mind. He needed to approach this with care, a balancing act of respect for their shared past and his commitment to his present. Each footfall reverberated with the questions he feared most. How much of his heart was he willing to expose? Would walking into this meeting only serve to unravel the new life he was attempting to stitch together with Emily? He scrutinized himself in the mirror, focusing on his reflection rather than the chaotic thoughts that spiraled around it. You are not defined by your past, he whispered, attempting to summon a strength that felt elusive. Today was about reclaiming parts of his narrative that had long been distorted by sorrow and misunderstanding. When the moment arrived, Jake found himself seated at a modest cafe an hour later than planned, sipping a black coffee to steady his nerves. He watched as patrons exchanged laughter and solace, while he grappled silently with his uncertainties. He was determined not to allow nostalgia to color their encounter. He was resolved to surface the truths buried beneath their shared joys and pains. At last, Sarah stepped through the door. Her hair tumbled around her shoulders in soft waves, and she radiated a blend of anticipation and caution, traits that brought back memories of their earlier days together. As their eyes met, Jake felt a rush of conflicting emotions, both familiarity and distance. "Thanks for coming," he said, attempting to anchor himself in the moment. "Thanks for agreeing to meet, Jake," she replied, her voice a combination of relief and trepidation. She settled across from him, their once easy communication now laced with hesitance. Small talk fizzled out quickly, and Jake sensed the shifting undercurrents. "I want to establish some ground rules," he began, his voice resolute. "We need to focus on clarity, not on giving in to old habits. This isn't about rekindling or reopening wounds." Sarah nodded, visibly processing this intention. "I've thought a lot about our past, what we went through. I get that we both have moved on, but it can't just be about closure. I hope you understand." Her honesty hit him with a mixture of fear and empathy. Was closure enough? Was it selfish to long for more? As Sarah spoke about her current situation, her struggles, Jake noted the resilience in her voice. It expanded his thinking beyond mere relationships and pushed him to consider his own fears of failure. Would he risk losing everything he had built with Emily by indulging in this exploration? As the cafe noise melted away, the real conversation began. They navigated through the decades, opening old wounds while trying to heal them. For every emotion that surfaced, Jake experienced a cathartic release, but he also felt the tether of responsibility that bound him to Emily tighten. After what felt like hours, a profound silence enveloped the two of them. Jake's heart raced as he prepared to lead them to the next critical point. "Whatever we had is part of my story, but it doesn't dictate who I am today or what lies ahead in my life. I need to understand how to fully embrace my future with Emily without the weight of our past entangling it." Sarah's response was thoughtful, reflective, yet she hesitated. "I understand, but what if that future includes more questions than answers?" In that moment, Jake realized they were not just recounting their history, they were sketching out the blueprints of new beginnings. This meeting was not a mere chapter in his life, but a transformational phase, a poignant determination to reshape his identity through careful reflection. As they wrapped up their conversation, Jake felt clarity wash over him, a determination to anchor his values and priorities. Yet, under the waves of hope lay the chilling notion that their discussion could unravel everything he had built. He had come seeking resolution, but what if he found only deeper entanglements? With a renewed pulse of conviction, he contemplated the future, a darker shadow lurking in the corners. What if facing these buried truths revealed more about who he truly was, perhaps more than he ever wanted to confront? The following days passed in a haze, a blend of anticipation and anxiety that kept Jake restless. Every time he glanced at his phone, he grappled with the urge to reach out to Sarah, but he'd made a promise to himself. The clarity he sought to grasp was slipping through his fingers. Instead, he turned inward, engaged in a rigorously honest self-examination. It was no longer just a matter of his relationship with Emily or Sarah, this was about his own evolution. That Sunday evening, as Jake sat on the balcony with a dimming sunset painting the sky in shades of orange, he began to lay out his internal dialogue with sincerity. What did he truly want? He was no longer the naive boy Sarah once knew. These experiences, both joyful and painful, had sculpted him into a man aware of his responsibilities. Yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger with each introspective thought. Am I betraying Emily? He asked himself, feeling the weight of the question. They had crafted something meaningful together, and he relished the stability Emily provided. Yet the swirling emotions he experienced during his meeting with Sarah challenged this newfound calm. In his quest for understanding, Jake turned to journaling, an idea suggested by Emily as a way to untangle complex thoughts. Each line he wrote became a step further into his inner landscape. He recalled memories that sparked fear, uncertainty, and yearning. Capturing his feelings in ink created a space for clarity, a tapestry woven with threads of honesty stripped of pretense. It was this practice that led him to acknowledge not just the hurt of the past but also the lessons it imparted. He recognized that the fear of losing Emily stemmed from his own insecurities, not from any reality that existed between them. Distrust in himself created barriers that clouded his vision. Jake's pen glided across the page, revealing insights that he had been too afraid to confront. He could forge a future with Emily, but not at the expense of fully addressing his past with Sarah. Finally, he arrived at the critical juncture, the understanding that vulnerability was not a weakness but a strength. With this realization, Jake awakened to the thought of not merely severing ties with his past but integrating those lessons into his present self. He felt compelled to reach out to Emily, to share this newfound revelation, to solidify the foundation they had built together. As he took a deep breath and dialed Emily's number, he recognized a profound shift within himself. He was ready to open up, reveal the tumultuous emotions he had faced, and, more importantly, to share his commitment to their future. He understood that true partnership required openness. Whatever Sarah represented in his past, she was part of the map, not the destination. "Hey, Emily," he began when she answered, his heart racing. "Can we talk? There's something I really want to share with you." He could almost feel the tension crackling between them, a moment pregnant with potential changes and revelations. But as he prepared to navigate this pivotal conversation, a sudden thought struck him, a dread creeping in unexpectedly. What if Emily perceived this talk as a betrayal? Would his honesty forge a closer bond or drive a wedge between them? Jake's stomach twisted. He faced a paradox of truth-telling, showing vulnerability versus risking damage to what they had built. The stakes felt high, and uncertainty began to bubble beneath his resolve. In that fragile moment of clarity, Jake prepared himself for the charges ahead. He realized that embracing the past could open the door to a deeper future. But would it be enough? The tension of unspoken words lingered, propelling him forward into this next chapter of his life, a moment where everything he held dear hung in the balance, ready to shift, change, or erupt. The question loomed large in his mind as he steadied his thoughts: could this leap of faith bring liberation or disaster? With bated breath and determination, Jake took the plunge into vulnerability, knowing that the outcome might alter not just his life, but the futures of both women entwined in his story. The line crackled faintly through the phone, and Jake braced himself for the looming conversation. Her voice, soft yet alert, was a reminder of everything he cherished. But uncertainty wrapped around his thoughts like a heavy fog, making clarity seem unreachable. "Sure, Jake. What's on your mind?" Emily's inquiry was genuine, yet he could sense an undercurrent of tension in her tone. The weight of his preceding silence hung heavily, laden with implications. With every fiber of his being, Jake wanted to articulate the internal battles he had been waging, but the words tangled in his throat. Instead of launching into his revelations, he felt the impulse to gauge her mood, to make sure his honesty wouldn't unleash fears of its own. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he started, pacing the confined space of his apartment. About my past." Emily paused, the silence on the line felt deafening. "Your past? Jake, is this about Sarah?" Jake swallowed hard. Confronting the shadow of Sarah felt daunting, like stepping onto a stage with a spotlight glaring down on his vulnerabilities. "Yes, it is. But it's more than just her, it's what she represents. I've realized that if I want to move forward with you, I need to pull these threads together." "Jake," her voice faltered. He could hear the wheels turning in her mind, the potential fears bubbling to the surface. The thought of her hesitation fueled a knot of panic in him, but he pressed on, determined to make this moment meaningful. I love you, Emily. But I've been carrying my past like a burden. Our relationship is important, but it can't be built on half-truths or secrets. The statement rolled off of his tongue as both a confession and a declaration of intent. There was silence on the other end. Jake imagined Emily digesting his words, processing the implications, weighing them against her own emotions. Are you saying that you still have feelings for her? The question struck deep, the slight edge in her voice revealing a fissure that he had unknowingly created. No. Jake protested instinctively. That's not what I mean. I've come to understand where I've been, and confronting it is the only way I can fully commit to us. He was pleading now, every ounce of his honesty poured into this moment. He wanted her to hear the sincerity behind his voice, the intention driving his revelations. It's a part of my history. I can't ignore it, and I don't want to hide that from you. Okay, Emily replied slowly, her tone softened slightly by his candor but tethered by caution. I appreciate you sharing that, but I need to think about what this means for us. Jake felt the ground shift beneath him. This was the moment he anticipated, yet it left him feeling unsteady. He had hoped to inspire connection and trust, not this vacancy that now occupied the space between them. Take your time, he said quietly, feeling both fragile and resolute at once. As he hung up, an unexpected wave of weariness washed over him. Jake sank onto the couch, overwhelmed by both liberation and dread. His courage to be vulnerable had come at a cost he hadn't fully grasped. The realization of the potential fallout hung heavy in the air. It felt like walking on a tightrope and he was teetering dangerously close to the edge. As he replayed the moment, he contemplated how he could further prepare for any aftermath from this decision. Was there still a chance to reshape his relationship with Emily? Did he possess the strength to navigate any storm resulting from his choice? The answers eluded him just as fleetingly as his confidence had faltered, leaving him questioning whether he had acted with clear intent or reckless abandon. He needed to ground himself, to seek support as he contemplated the future. Jake's phone buzzed with text notifications, a sudden pang of anxiety flared within him as he thought of reaching out to his closest friends. Yet among his friends, there remained an awareness of how to confront emotional intricacies. Would they understand his endeavor? Amid this haze of confusion and possibility, a glimmer of determination ignited. He realized that seeking advice or insight could bridge the gap between where he stood and where he wanted to go. The decision was clear, he would reach out. The next conversation could help clarify what lay ahead for him. After all, navigating the choppy waters of vulnerability required not only internal fortitude but also the guidance of those who had faced similar storms. With his heart racing and a new resolve surging, Jake picked up his phone again, ready to take that next step into unfamiliar territory. The moments ahead would demand fortitude, but he was determined to carve out a path for himself. Would the journey to self-discovery also clear the fog enveloping his relationships? He needed to find out. The following day, Jake decided to meet with his friend Ben, someone who always seemed to cut through the fog with perceptive clarity. They often held discussions that blended humor with depth, a balancing act that Jake found comforting. Today, however, Jake approached the conversation with an urgency that overshadowed their usual playful banter. Sitting in the corner of their favorite coffee shop, the aroma of roasted beans offering a familiar solace, Jake watched Ben as he scrolled through his phone with casual indifference. The man had an uncanny ability to maintain a light heart despite life's complexities. But today, Jake's heart raced in stark contrast to Ben's nonchalance. "Jake, you look like you just found out the world is ending," Ben said, finally putting his phone down and raising an eyebrow. "What is going on?" Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his confessions bubble below the surface. "I had a conversation with Emily last night." The words emerged pushing past the apple of anxiety lodged in his throat. He swallowed hard, the lump refusing to fade. I laid it all out there about Sarah and how I've been carrying that part of me into our relationship. Ben leaned back, his expression shifting to one of keen interest. And? How did she take it? Jake let out a shaky sigh. She wasn't angry, but she seemed cautious. I think it shook her. Beneath the surface of relief came the gnawing fear that he had placed them on precarious ground. She wants to think about it. Dude, that's a good sign, Ben said, his optimism cracking through Jake's doubt. She didn't walk away. You opened up when many wouldn't have. That takes guts. Maybe, Jake muttered, fiddling with the coffee cup in front of him. He had hoped for clarity, but instead, doubt tangled with feeling empowered. But what if she decides it's too much? It's been years since I've dealt with those memories. I thought confronting this would make things better, but now I'm terrified it may ruin everything. Ben locked eyes with him, lowering his voice so that only Jake could hear. Facing your past is hard. But living in its shadow is harder. You know that, right? Jake nodded, but the resonance of Ben's words didn't dissipate his unease. He returned to thinking about Emily and the uncertainty lying before him, a shadow that could take form in multiple ways. Could their bond emerge stronger, or was this the beginning of a fracture? I don't want to lose her, Ben, he confessed, the admission shaking loose hidden concerns. But if I truly want to build something real, I need to pull my history into the open, not just for her, but for myself. What do you mean? Ben cocked his head, intrigued. I've always compartmentalized feelings, pushed them aside to focus on the present. But maybe it's time I stop pretending those pieces of my past don't exist. It's not just about Emily anymore. I need to free myself from the fear of what those pieces represent. Sounds like you're on a quest for authenticity, man, Ben offered, a grin breaking through. Channel that energy. It won't just help you face Emily, it'll help you grow. Jake absorbed the encouragement. The idea of growth ignited a flicker of hope, a beacon amid the fog. What he didn't realize was that this journey into authenticity would require a confrontation he hadn't yet considered. As they wrapped their conversation, Ben urged Jake to go see Sarah, not to rekindle anything, but to confront the past that shadowed Jake's present. The thought sent tremors of uncertainty coursing through him, but something deeper whispered that it might be the necessary step forward. With every sense ablaze, Jake found himself standing at the precipice of his next choice. Was he ready to confront Sarah? He needed to find out. Jake stood outside the cafe, feeling the cool breeze brush against him as he attempted to solidify his thoughts. Each breath felt heavier than the last, a combination of anxiety and something oddly exhilarating that coursed through him. The idea of confronting Sarah was unnerving, but deep down, a faint sense of urgency surged within him. He had delivered his truth to Emily, and now, he felt compelled to face the woman who had once been a cornerstone of his emotional landscape. He pulled his phone from his pocket and scrolled through his contacts. One encounter had the potential to alter the course of many lives, including his own. As he hovered over Sarah's name, he recalled the laughter they had once shared. It felt bittersweet now, tainted by memories of anger and separation. Did he even know her anymore? Finally, he tapped the call button. After the second ring, a familiar voice answered, steady yet distant. Jake? Sarah, he replied, each syllable weighted. I need to see you. Can we talk? He sensed the pause on the other end. The years of silence seemed to stretch. Sure, where? Can we meet at the park? We used to go there a lot. The location felt significant, yet laden with nostalgia. It mirrored the crossroads he found himself at now. Okay, I'll be there. Her voice was neutral, leaving him to ponder whether she too felt the gravity of this meeting. Once he arrived at the park, the sounds of chirping birds met his ears, contrasting with the turmoil in his mind. He waited anxiously, his footsteps tracing circles around a bench. Each lap churned his stomach further as he envisioned the possible outcomes. Would Sarah be defensive? Angry? Or would she be open, willing to share what had been left unspoken? Finally, he spotted her walking toward him, her familiar silhouette evoking a rush of memories. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, and she wore a hesitant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. When they locked gazes, something shifted in Jake, an understanding of the pain both their hearts had endured. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, trying to infuse sincerity into the moment. "Yeah," Sarah replied, crossing her arms as if protecting herself. "This is," she trailed off, searching for the right words. "Hard," he supplied. It was the truth, grounding the atmosphere between them. After a brief silence, he took a seat and motioned for her to join him. She sank onto the bench, and instinctively, Jake sensed the defensiveness in her posture. "It's been a while," he began, deciding to cut through the tension. "I've been thinking about everything that happened between us, and how I've carried it into my life now." She turned her gaze to the ground, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "I don't even know where to start, Jake. It still hurts." His heart constricted at the admission. "I know it does." He hesitated, grappling with his own feelings of regret and longing. "But I recently confronted my past with Emily, and if I want to move forward, I need to untangle everything, including this." Sarah looked up, curiosity mingling with skepticism. "What are you saying?" "I want to understand. Not to fix anything, just to acknowledge that our story matters. It's part of who I am, and I can't run from that anymore." He could see the walls around her begin to crack, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through. "I've had my own ghosts," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if I can go back to that place." Jake leaned in closer, desperate to convey his sincerity. "We shouldn't be afraid to face this. We owe it to ourselves." As the gravity of their shared history loomed between them, Jake realized that unlocking the past meant grappling with hidden emotions that threatened to consume him. Would they emerge from this encounter with clarity or more confusion? He could almost feel the pendulum swinging between resolution and further entanglement. The moment hung, charged with unspoken words and unprocessed feelings. "Let us talk," he urged. Little did he know, their discussion would veer into depths neither was prepared for. With that, Jake took a deep breath, ready to face the past, but equally anxious about what revelations might await them both. Would he find closure, or open a Pandora's box he wasn't prepared to handle? As Sarah drew a shaky breath, Jake sensed the shifting tension, the weight of past grievances thickening the air around them. "What do you want to know?" she finally asked, her voice a whisper tinted with defensiveness. The fragility of the moment was nearly palpable, and Jake willed himself to respond thoughtfully. "Let us start with us," he suggested, keeping his tone measured. "We can't ignore that our relationship was pivotal for both of us, even if it's painful to revisit." He hoped his honesty would encourage her to drop her guard, to open the channel to a long-overdue dialogue. She studied him, the flickering sunlight dappling her face, revealing a stricken expression. "You say it matters, but it feels like a wound. One that hasn't healed," she replied. "You moved on so easily. How do you expect me to feel?" Her words stung, and Jake felt a rush of defensiveness rise within him. "I'm not here to invalidate your feelings. I wrestled with my own burdens, Sarah. The truth is, I shut a lot of things out to get by." He paused, letting the weight of his admission settle. "But I'm trying to change that. I want to crawl back through the jagged pieces of our past, not to relive the pain but to embrace it." He saw the flicker of acknowledgement in her eyes, though it was shrouded in confusion. "Change is scary. What if facing it only adds more wounds?" Jake felt that familiar urgency well up again. He needed to convey the importance of this moment, the chance to reclaim their narratives. Sometimes we need to confront our fears to find liberation. Denying them won't work in the long run. I've learned that the hard way. "Easy for you to say," she muttered, her bite half-hearted, riven with a mix of frustration and curiosity. You've taken charge of your life. I'm still stuck. Not for long, he countered, a newfound determination sparking within him. You can be your own catalyst for change. Sarah's laughter was bitter, a sound tinged with skepticism. You say that as if it's simple. You don't know what I've been through. Help me understand, then, he replied gently, steering the conversation. What are you afraid of losing if we confront this? The clouds above shifted, shadowing them momentarily, an atmospheric reflection of their turbulent conversation. Sarah hesitated, her brow furrowing as she contemplated his question. I'm afraid of the past consuming me, she finally admitted, her voice hoarse. If I dig deep, I might unearth feelings I have buried for so long. What if they choke me? Jake leaned forward, minimizing the space between them, his desire for connection intensifying. Facing the ghosts doesn't mean they have to control you. It means reasserting your power over them. It's the first step toward freedom. For a heartbeat, the grounds of the park seemed to hold its breath as Sarah considered his words. He watched the internal battle unfold on her face, a tempest of emotions battling for dominance. It's terrifying, she murmured. I know, Jake replied, cradling his own fear like a fragile feather. But it's also liberating. Look where we are. We're finally allowing ourselves to engage with the past instead of letting it dictate our lives. Perhaps this is our moment to reclaim what was lost. Her eyes glistened, a tenderness creeping in as the armor around her heart began to crack further. You make it sound so easy. Nothing worth having ever is, Jake whispered. The vulnerability he shared with her was exhilarating, a sudden shift that made the air bristly electric. Sarah began, her voice breaking as she swayed between trepidation and hope. Meanwhile, in Jake's mind, a cascade of realizations bloomed, illuminating his path. He had started the essential dialogue, but more importantly, he had begun a profound self-discovery of his own resilience and capacity for empathy. Yet, within the silence that followed her unfinished thought, an unsettling question hung thick in the air. Would their renewed understanding lead to closure, or open up deeper wounds tangled in their unresolved history? With the prospect of a monumental shift before them, Jake felt a synchronous pulse in the spaces between them, a glimmer of potential. Tell me what you feel, Sarah, he urged, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. She inhaled sharply, the tension between hope and dread swirling. At that moment, it became clear that facing their ghosts might create a new reality neither had anticipated. The air was rich with promise, yet saturated with unanswered questions. And in that charged atmosphere, would they find courage to embrace the unknown, or would fear forge new divides? As the sun dipped lower, casting lengthening shadows around them, Jake and Sarah found themselves caught in the delicate web of vulnerability woven from their shared past. Each heartbeat echoed the gravity of their conversation. Their ghosts danced just out of reach, but the prospect of clarity loomed enticingly ahead. Tell me what you feel, Sarah, he urged again, feeling the urgency of their reckoning envelop him. The tension hung between them, heavy yet charged with potential, as he braced for the words that could catalyze change. With a deep breath, Sarah's gaze met his, her uncertainty transforming into resolve. I feel lost. I've spent so long trying to be strong on my own, but the truth is, I miss our connection. I miss the person I was when we dreamed together. Her honesty struck Jake like a lightning bolt, it illuminated the fractures he had almost forgotten. As she continued to speak, he recognized how intertwined their journeys had been. The hurt has always lingered, unsaid things, the promises we never kept. But I also understand that locking away those feelings hasn't helped either of us. I'm scared of reopening wounds I thought had healed. Jake nodded, the realization settling over him like a blanket. Our past is painful, but it's also a part of us. It shaped who we are, but it doesn't have to dictate our future. We can redefine it. His voice carried a certainty, solidifying the newfound strength he felt bubbling within him. Sarah regarded him with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "You're right. Maybe it's time to reclaim that part of my past. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I need to honor it, acknowledge its influence but also let it fade into a chapter learned and closed." The resolution in her voice shifted the atmosphere, brightening the dim complexities of their entangled histories. Jake realized he was witnessing a true transformation before his eyes. Sarah was choosing not only to confront her past but to embrace change as a path to freedom. "That's powerful," he said, feeling a surge of pride for her newfound clarity. Yet the highs of their revelations were accompanied by an unsettling confirmation of the path before him. Could he do the same? Could he accept the pain of his past with Sarah while steadfastly committing to his present with Emily? The echoes of his previous decisions bounced in the back of his mind, threatening to pull him back into the shadows. "I want you to be happy, Sarah. We both deserve that," he declared, feeling an unexpected wave of compassion for their shared history. Letting go means finding closure, not avoidance. It's about recognizing our choices without letting them overshadow what lies ahead. A gentle wind ruffled the leaves overhead, seemingly mirroring the stirring mutual understanding that began to blossom. "That means a lot to me, Jake," she replied, her voice softening like the evening light. "Maybe confronting the past will help us both. We can weave our experiences into who we are becoming, not merely who we were." Jake smiled, the shadows of doubt that had loomed over him starting to recede. He realized that he was, at last, truly ready to step forward not only for himself but also for Emily and the life he aspired to build together. He had been tethered by fear for too long. Now, he felt a compelling freedom swelling within him, a call to action he could no longer ignore. "Can I share something with you?" asked Jake, his resolve sharpening. "Throughout this journey, I've had the misconception that I needed to separate the past from my present completely. But I believe the memories, the lessons, they can coexist with my commitment to Emily. Sharing my history doesn't mean I'm betraying her, it means I'm fortifying the foundation of honesty and trust." The veneer of doubt lifted from Sarah's features, replaced by a resonance of understanding. "You know, Jake, if you'd told me this a year ago, I would have scoffed. But I see the growth in you. I want to evoke that for myself." Jake felt a warmth course through him, the flickering flame of hope. They had weathered hardships that had almost drowned them both, yet here they were, not only alive but ready for healing and renewal. As they delved deeper into the heart of their dialogue, Jake mulled over the affirmative actions awaiting him. It was essential not only to carry his understanding onward but also to approach Emily with this newfound clarity and commitment. Telling her about his revelations, his active choice to confront both his relationship with Sarah and his own past, would be a key unlocked in their relationship. It would usher in an era of openness, throwing out the shadows he had allowed to linger. Preparation for that conversation surged within him. The thought of Emily's face brought a wave of assurance, the way her eyes sparkled with encouragement, how she navigated tensions gracefully. The love they shared would withstand this revelation. "It's time to break the cycle," he declared, turning to Sarah. "We all deserve to move forward with love, not burdens." Their conversation continued, delicately untangling the threads of their shared history, and each discussion brought with it a catharsis. By the end, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The dichotomy of their past had illuminated the way to an empowered future for both of them. As they exchanged their goodbyes, Jake stood a little taller, heart racing with new purpose. He was ready to confront the present, to meet his past head-on and share the journey he had carved out. Within, he felt an undeniable shift. It was not just a matter of allowing change, but of actively pursuing it, embracing it. This moment wasn't merely an end to their complex history but a celebration of authentic beginnings, the beginnings of healing, of self-discovery, and of renewed commitments. As he walked away from the park, Jake's heart thrummed with anticipation. He realized this moment marked a pivotal turn, igniting the next chapter of his life with the conviction to face both his relationships authentically and bravely. And in the urgency of that moment, a thought stormed through his mind: tomorrow, he would share everything with Emily. They would embark on a journey steeped in transparency, a bond built not only on love and trust but on the understanding of the past shaping their commitment to the now. The path ahead was uncharted, but Jake knew he could respond with resolute conviction and unwavering resolve. He had confronted Sarah, and now he was ready to reforge his bond with Emily, stronger and more connected than ever before. With that fresh sense of purpose, Jake smiled softly to himself, bolstered by the knowledge that true transformation begins with courage. He was ready to embrace the next chapter, filled with the promise of growth, understanding, and fortitude. Jake had made strides toward personal growth, and now, it was time to share that journey with Emily, transforming uncertainty into clarity and redefining what it meant to build a life grounded in authenticity. For those who share this journey with me, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that explore personal transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more powerful narratives like Jake's. Comment your reactions and theories about his journey and what is to come. Your thoughts matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this story about overcoming challenges and embracing change. True fans of personal growth understand the urgency of spreading these transformative tales. Let us get this message out there.